Hi there, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying their lunch, is feeling refreshed. We're going to have some really exciting conversations now. I would love if everybody would give a round of applause for our student perspective panelists. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Donna Kidwell and Sharika to lead us off.
Hey, everybody. One of my absolute favorite pieces of an event like this is getting to hang out with students and actually hearing what they think of all the stuff that we're up to and hearing their own stories. So here we are. I'm going to hand it to my colleague and then have us kind of come back to me and ask each of you to introduce yourselves. We're just going to start with a quick introduction of who you are, but then we're going to come back around and I'll have a question for you. But introductions first.
Thank you, Donna. Hey, everyone. I'm Sharika, and I have been at TLN for the past 5 months, but I'm also a master's student here at ASU, and I have half of my class here, so a big woohoo to you guys.
Big woohoo.
Woo! Yes, and I absolutely love the work that we do, and I'm really excited to hear other student perspectives, because my perspective has certainly changed after I've joined TLN. Over to you, Sigrid.
Hi, so my name's Sigrid. I'm going into my second year in the Master of Counseling program over at Tempe. Completely in-person program, so I definitely went in thinking it was going to be traditional, but there's areas where I'm seeing, digital wallet, having access definitely plays into my career, my education, so I'm excited to talk about that.
Hey everyone, my name is Ash Sharma. I'm a second semester junior doing my bachelor's in computer science and a minor in business. I'm studying at the A.I. Fulton Schools of Engineering, and I'm excited to be here.
Hello, my name's Ezzy Angel, and I am also a student, a master's in information systems management.
Hello. All right. Hello, my name is Tyler Hanyata. I'm currently a second semester civil engineering major at Arizona State University in the Ira A. Fulton School of Engineering.
So, a lot of different places where you're currently at, which means some really interesting journeys to get where you're at. So I kind of want to start there and really ask each of you to kind of help us, take us on the journey for how you got to what you're doing today. And Sigrid, I'm going to start with you.
So I already came in here with a grad degree in educational psychology. It's a lot of different contextual thinking out of the box is pretty much every single one of my seminars, and I appreciated that background, but when I started my current program, I also had finished some of the requirements and was not trying to take statistics for the 4th time. And I was having trouble having access to the syllabus for my old classes, like my syllabi, and I realized that if I had saved it at the time, if I had stored it in a place that I felt secure, I would have been able to have more smooth process in getting some classes waived. It's definitely helping me with shortening my program time, but it was just a huge hurdle, and everyone's busy in the middle of the year, so it can take longer. Now it's something I'm thinking of for future licensing. Just how do I have proof of my licensing if I'm working at a new space, or if I'm going to another state. So yeah, just even getting me through my current process, I'm seeing the areas where I could have saved some time, could have saved some headaches, and a lot of emails. So yeah.
That's interesting in we talk a lot about urgency, a sense of agency, learner agency, and I appreciate that you're taking on kind of a personal responsibility. Here's something you could have done. And here we are kind of figuring out, what are these kinds of things? And as different types of institutions, what could we do to facilitate that? Or to maybe help raise an awareness and create some tools to make it easy for you along the journey. But I love the sense of both personal responsibility. I also hear that as a responsibility for us too. Ash?
So starting from when I came here, I'm not from here. I'm an international student from India. So it has been by chance that like I met someone one time and they were going to ASU too. So they were a Sun Devil. They were like, I'm going to ASU. And then I was talking with them and everything, but I never thought that I would do it. But I'm so glad that like I'm here right now. I have been serving as a student leader at ASU for the past 3 years in different capacities, whether it be Vice President of Communication for Fulton Student Council or the Residence Hall Association President or being undergraduate teaching assistant or being a community assistant currently. So I think the journey has been a lot of things. I'm also probably going to work on research this summer. So yeah, a very unexpected journey, but very thankful that I'm here right now.
We'll come back to the unexpected parts later. Ezzy.
All right. Hello. Okay, so my parents are from Mexico, and they graduated or finished high school, maybe, or maybe even elementary school, I don't remember. So to me, the concept of higher ed was kind of this far away, like only certain people get to go to college or even get a master's, and I never pursued it. I did really well in high school, and I had a guidance counselor that took a particular interest in me. And the only reason I applied to ASU was because she literally called me into her office, made me sit down, and told me to apply, and would not let me leave until I did. And then I graduated, attended ASU, graduated with a degree in information systems, started working, and then 14 years later, enrolled in the master's program. So that's my journey.
So I've had kind of a weird journey to get my bachelor's, or almost get my bachelor's. So I was once 18, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, really. So I was like, community college, it sounds like a great idea. So I went to Chandler Gilbert Community College for about 2 years, started in 2018, and then I transferred to ASU. And I've had to experience the struggles of being a transfer student. It's definitely a lot harder when you're going from a community college level to a university level. And here I am about 5.5 years into my journey. I'm getting my bachelor's though, finally. So, woo! And I think from my experience though, I really enjoyed starting smaller at community college because it kind of shows I have like the humble start, you know? And I kind of enjoyed community college a little bit more just because they have smaller class sizes, and for the most part, I feel like our learning was more interactive with our professor, while when you go to a university, that's when you're going to have professors that don't really teach, and they just are only there for the research. I've had experience a couple of those, but yeah, so far it's been a great journey, and I'm going to get my master's eventually, probably when I'm like 30 and married with kids, but for now, I'm happy where I'm at.
Tyler, it's funny that you mentioned that when you're 30 and you're married with kids. But let's move on from that. But kudos to...
Before we do, I warned you that I might go off script, so,
Yeah, sure.
so I did warn you. But you should share your journey too, because you are also a student, so please.
Absolutely. We did a workshop upstairs where it was so therapeutic to actually talk about my journey.
I've heard that word used more than once
It was
in
actually very
regard to what happened
therapeutic,
upstairs,
yes.
so it sounded pretty transformational.
Yes. So a little bit about myself, if I have the permission to be vulnerable here, is that I belong to a minority in a country that is still considered to be developing. So I belong from a family or an extended family that didn't really believe in the concept of education, or where it just took a back seat. But I had really supportive parents. So my parents were like, we don't really care what anyone else has to say, you're gonna go get your degree. And I really had to fight to even get my bachelor's degree in computer science, and I cherished every single moment of it, because Not everyone gets a chance to do that. So I became a software engineer because I liked it. And then, from then on, master's was like a far-off dream for me. When anyone would ask me, I'm like, no, I don't think, I mean, this has been too much for me. But then I mustered the courage, worked in the corporate world for about 5 years, and then decided to come to the US to do my master's. And I met some really awesome people here. So I'm really, really happy, with so much gratitude with all the people that have been in my life who made this possible.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that is a bit off script, but I really love hearing about it. You had a second question.
Yes. So we see that the language around learning has evolved. Before I joined TLN, I used to describe myself as a student, but now I describe myself as a lifelong learner, right? So it's fascinating how the language has evolved. So when we talk about digital credentials in general, they are nothing but records of accomplishment that a learner has picked up over their lifetime in order to pursue an opportunity. They can be transcripts, diplomas, certifications, badges, or even licenses, you name it. So Sigrid, my question to you, in fact, is that in the field of counseling, how would you use these artifacts, and how do you foresee using them in the future?
So when I was thinking about this student panel, I was already doing research on something called a counseling compact. So it's an agreement between states, like a group that they're joining that lets you practice with a license from a different state in that state that's in the compact. Currently, 1/3 of the country is already approved and part of it. Another third has legislature, including Arizona. And it's just an opportunity to be able to practice outside of our immediate communities. But I'm also thinking about, I'm moving into a Native community for my internship, and that is my focus group. And people with any tribal affiliation are able to use our services. So if there's someone in Washington who can't get access where they're at, but they know we have telehealth and I can serve them from Arizona, I might need to be able to show them my licensing and that I am part of that compact. But I can't do that physically. I'm not there. I have to be able to have some access to give them whatever documentation they need, especially in cases of emergencies. So that's a big area that I'm seeing, but also, so just even getting a new state license, I have to be able to prove transcripts, course descriptions, syllabi. I have to prove everything, especially places like California that are like at the top of all requirements. They have extra requirements that no other state has, and yeah, I have to be able to have all of that on me already available. That's that personal accountability. Just trying to save myself some effort later on down the road if I can start collecting now. Yeah.
So part of the reason why I love doing this job is that hopefully we can facilitate such organizations where in the future we can make the transition a lot easier. Donna?
Well, I think we should build on that, because you are in a space that has a totally different structure in terms of how civil engineering thinks of its certificates and its relationship and how you get jobs. So it sounds like there might be an interesting variation of the story that you're experiencing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the outlier here. So when it comes to civil engineering, they just want to see that you have like a background with like a bachelor's. They aren't really too picky. One thing that they do try to get us students and even out of college to get is something called your EIT license, which stands for Engineering Training. So this license, you take it in the state. It's universally okay in about 50 of the states except for California. And so you use that EIT, it just shows like, hey, I know what I'm doing, you can count on me, right? And then after you have about 5 years, 6 years of experience with references, you can take your PE license, which is your professional engineering license, which means that you can seal plans. Civils are the only discipline that has to actually stamp and seal their plans because it deals with the public and all that fun stuff. So you really don't need a digital certificate per se, as long as you go to college and maybe just get your EIT license. That's all you really need. So I guess I'm kind of the outlier here because I really don't need a digital certificate per se.
At least today, the way that's structured. But it sounds like California likes coming up with new rules. So I'm going to hold out for California. So I want to take these two kind of professional experiences. I'm also going off script. Sorry, not sorry. And ask the two in the center, like your international experience. Here we are talking about the challenges that you might have trying to, California. But talk to us a little bit about what your international experience was coming in from India and Mexico.
Well, I'm not international. My parents are from Mexico, but
Fair enough. So you went to school here?
yes.
Ah, okay. That's good. We've done some focus groups with Monterey Tech. We've got lots of ASU relationships with Monterey Tech. And they've shared that it's not so much internally, but then when they want to do internships in other countries, then they're encountering that, which, I don't know. Tell us what you've seen, Ash.
So I think personally, so my major is computer science, and I think for a major like computer science, you specifically don't need a degree. If you're good at coding, if you know how to do it, you are in, because like the first thing that the interviewers do for CS is the technical round. I mean, it adds value that, you know, you have a sheet of paper that says that you have graduated from this fancy university. But I think the most important part is the personal projects that you do and the other things that you're doing along with your degree. Because just having a degree is not going to get you an interview, but you need to have an additional extracurricular project or something in that field in order to get that interview. Coming back to the question of India, I personally think that whatever like certification gained from the United States has a good value, just because like the educational system is very much valued over there. So in my perspective, getting a degree from United States is kind of helpful. It boosts your chances in order to get like more interviews.
Fair enough. I think I'm gonna give you back for question 5.
Sure. So one of the challenges that we see in the digital credential space, that learners are often distanced from their credentials. Speaking from my own experience, when I had to move to the US, I had to do all sorts of cartwheeling in order to get my transcripts. And that was because I was out of my college for about 5 years before I could go hunting them down. So that happens a lot in this space. Ezzy, you've been in the administrative department for quite some time. What would you say is needed for the students, as well as you're a student now as well, that could help them have more access to credentials?
Well, I haven't been in the space that long. I'm not that old. But yeah, so at ASU, and I think any higher ed institution, we really want to make sure that the admissions process is as streamlined and easy for students as possible. And one of the things that we do is collect self-reported information. And this is in order to, you know, kind of streamline that process while you guys collect your official transcripts and we get that into the system. We can continue to process your information. And at that point, it's kind of a trust relationship that you are actually reporting accurate information. And then we verify once we get your official transcripts in. And so I can see that credentials and having authenticated credentials would streamline this, because you no longer have to go through a separate process. You can just put it in, you'll have access to them, and at the time of submission, you'll be able to authenticate that what you're saying and what you're telling us about the courses you've taken, the credits you've gotten, all of that is actually, accurate. So I do think that there is space there. And having my niece, she's a current high school senior, and knowing how difficult it is to get them to sit down and do what they're supposed to do, I think that gives them a little bit more of a buffer, because they won't longer have to depend on a separate process in order to get those transcripts sent in. So it might be better for them.
No, you're absolutely on point because I remember thinking this, and I think I shared this with you in class as well, with Brooke as well, that when I had to translate from my percentage, we had a percentage system to GPA, I just went ahead and did that, and ASU accepted it. So I don't know. So, it's all about trusting. So I'm a nice kid, so I was, honest about it. But yeah, I get that. To explore a little bit more about what Tyler said, Ash said, and even Sigrid for that matter, we have, as students, maybe we've not yet seen the potential of credentials. I certainly did feel that way before I joined the space and got to work with some brilliant minds here. So before, I viewed credentials as just like, okay, fine, I have a transcript, I have a diploma, but they were all in silos. But what are your thoughts about having them in a combined space where, let's say you talk about even creating a portfolio for your projects. Imagine having an authenticated or validated accomplishment that you can all store in a central location and be able to share with your employers. Does that prospect change your perspective about digital credentials? Let's start with Ash.
I personally think when you say something that's like verified or something like that, and it's like put in a portfolio, it definitely does, because it gives me an additional insight that the thing that's there is validated, and I can trust that thing. But at the same time, that can be one thing that can lead me to get an interview, but like not more than that, because I think that is the time when I have to show myself and that skill that I have gained or whatever verification that I've got, that was that true or was that someone else? So, yeah.
Well, there's that. And I feel like this conversation can go on after the panel discussion as well. But Sigrid, let's hear your thoughts.
So I'm currently looking to specializations I would want to do in counseling. And with that, it's just different courses, different online trainings, a lot of different pieces of paper proving that I did hours, but they're all in separate institutions, like folders, their own websites, their own portals. So for me, being able to prove that, especially same thing, thinking of job interviews, like trying to collect that all, I just don't want that. I want that portfolio to be able to show like, these are the trainings that I've received, and it's all verified. They're not having to confirm anything, not having to say, give us a couple weeks to check your recommendations, check all of the training certifications. So it would really just make that process seamless for me.
Trust me, I'm in the job market, and that process is going to make it a lot easier for me as well. So Tyler, let me hear your thoughts, and then we'll turn it over to Donna.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to the generic have all your certifications in one wallet per se, I think it really just depends on your profession. Because when it comes to engineering, for example, since we're so specific in what we do and what we have to know in our scope of services that we would provide at like a company to like a client, we would, if we do need our EIT license, or if we are a project manager with our PE license, you don't really need to have something like that, because all of our credentials are going to be stored at the state level, because it goes directly through the state. So since we're so like standardized, I guess is the way to say it, you really don't need that for us, but maybe for a different profession like counseling, for example, I could totally see it. But if you're so specific in what you do, and if you already have work experience, most of the time they're not even going to ask to see it, and if they do, they can just look you up in that database.
So I want to build on that a little bit and ask, because I kind of love the contrarian in that you've got an industry that kind of knows what it's doing and knows how to, a little bit. Yeah. Okay, well, we can build on that. But I'm also curious, like if you look at industries adjacent to yours or ones that you would interact with in the course of the work that you're doing, how that all comes together. And part of my question's informed because I think we've got a few folks like from University of Texas System. If you think, and Texas is doing a lot at the workforce level to try to understand data across the state, today, I think, trying to figure out what is the future of data across the state and how do they think about that. So the contribution of that data has got its value to you or not, but it's also got value to other players in the state. So are there other professions that you work with directly in the kinds of work you're anticipating doing that might have a different story?
Not really. So I've had about a year and a half of experience in like the actual corporate world. I worked for a couple of companies, and the only other discipline that we'd work with were the architects. I specifically work with the ones from Scottsdale. I would send them emails every once in a while to get information from them if we're working on projects. But for the most part, they have their own state certifications too. So and these have been people that we've worked with for a while. So we already knew what credentials they had and what we were going into. So when it comes to like a project, for example, I've never actually started a project. I've always came in like halfway. It would be my dream to start a project, but that's probably not going to happen for a couple years for me. So once you get into a project, you already know what you're kind of dealing with and your project managers and all of your construction managers have all the information already. So you really don't need it at that point. You would only need it at that short time where the project is proposed and actually bidded on. But besides that, you wouldn't need that.
So I'm going to offer, because I know there's a lot of different work happening in this room around this space, that if anybody's got a question for Tyler, we would let you ask too. Because, right, I warned you. Well, not that one. I didn't warn you about that one. But I love this line of thinking about, once you get momentum in the career that you're doing and the sets of things that, and certain careers will actually reinforce either through professional networks or in architecture, the reputation that you build as an architect, somebody being able to then come into your cities, then looking into those reputation systems. So I kind of love where you're going with this, and encourage if we've got some questions from the crowd that we could ask you questions too, but I'll let them think about that. Ezzy, did you have a comment on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick, leaning into some of the things that we're learning in our MSISM program and about disruptive technologies. I think that this is one of those disruptive technologies where it's not always easy to see the changes that it will cause, but I do think there will be some. And, I've been working for 14 years, and I am part of the hiring committees, and I'm hearing a lot of like, credentials don't really matter. That's because we're inherently trusting that what you're saying in your resumes is accurate, and if we can go and actually verify and just see, okay, yeah, these credentials, these things are verified, it's going to streamline our hiring process, because now I'm not having to weed through and then figure out, how accurate is this information that you're reporting. That's it.
So I might let us round out with another question, because here we are sitting amongst a group that's gathered today to really co-design this future. So if you had one thing that you could ask this group to really think about, and one thing that they should keep in mind, or that you'd like, hey, could you fix this problem? What would that one thing be? And Sigrid, I'll start with you.
I need a minute to think about that.
That's perfectly fair. Do you want to pick that one up? Do you have one thing?
I think I can take a shot at it, but it would be a biased opinion because I have been working with them.
Declare your bias and it's fine.
I would just say that they've been doing amazing work, and this was one of the conversations that we've had yesterday about having policy makers, but those policy makers come from different communities, and them having a voice in this space. I truly believe in that, and I feel that we should be strongly connected with the students as we're moving forward, and to just, as we keep moving ahead, to just always look back and check to see what problems are we actually solving for students.
That's a very good one. That deserves an applause. All right, other things that you would ask out of this group of co-creators and designers?
I thought of one.
Ooh, which one?
So I'm a student worker for Stephanie Pirati. She's over there, my amazing boss. But something that she offers me is opportunity to gain new skills, like to try new tasks that I've never done before. And I do feel very good that at the end of my time, she's gonna help me find a way to market what I've gained from this job. So if you have student workers in your department, in your office, how are you thinking about what you're gonna show for your student worker when they're done at their time with you? Because they are using that time to build themselves up in their career, even if it's not related. Those skills can translate to their field most of the time. So yeah, just what are you doing for your own student workers?
That's a fabulous one. Ash?
The one question I would just like to ask would be, what would be one advice that you would like to give your younger self, which has helped you to be where you're at right now?
Can I pass?
But you retain the right to come back if you come up with something like Secret did.
I don't have a question either. If I do think of one, I'll come back.
All right. So any questions from the crowd for our students? I'm looking at our time. We've got just a few minutes. If there are any questions from the crowd. Nobody wants to interrogate and make uncomfortable students? Roger.
Roger.
But of course. Hold on a second, Roger. Let's give you a mic. No, I'm giving you a mic.
So I'm actually directing this mostly at Tyler and Ash, because you characterized, at least from an educational perspective, how what we're building with course credentials isn't as valuable. But one of the things I'd like to ask is, presumably you will graduate and then you'll go get jobs, and what you do while at those jobs is going to inform the new skills and capabilities that you develop professionally. And as far as I know, we don't have a very good way of characterizing those. Would you see value in some way for your professional experiences to also be captured and provable for your next steps?
Roger, that's a great question. What do you think, guys?
So when it comes to highlighting my professional experiences, for example, I would like there a way for me to put it all in one place. But when it comes to all the interviews that I've been to, they're pretty old school. They just want like a resume usually, and they just want like a transcript. I'm like the outlier here, as I've said like a couple times. But I work in a field where as long as you've had some background, and if you get out of school with an internship or two, they're usually going to look at that as valuable experience. And that's what they'll look at mostly. So if you want to classify internship experience as a digital credential, that's something that would help market students, I think. I'm not sure when or how that would happen, but if you were to find a way to help us show employers what we have done, that would be something that I could see as very valuable.
Thank you, Tyler. Ash?
So related to my major of study, which is computer science, I can be a teaching assistant and a research assistant during my time, and that can lead me to get an interview for sure. But then I think one thing that would help me a lot would be lead code, because of the problems that we get is towards like creating a software that they give like the first round of interview. The first round of interview is going to be about how well you can code. So I think having those things like in my extracurriculars, which I gained from school, whether it be my leadership experience or my academic achievements, that can give me an interview for sure. But like if I have to like be in that firm and go to the next round, in order to explain all that work, at first I need to excel at whatever coding round questions I get. So I think having those things plus lead code, but also good in communication and collaboration.
Oh, thank you. Brooke, did you have a question?
Secret, yes.
Well, I wanted to just point out, like, I'm totally hearing everything that you're saying. I have a lot of people in my life that have had careers that span 30 years, and something that's changing is the requirements of the people that are becoming the bosses now. So, like, the older way of accepting a resume and like, yep, I trust you, I might make a call, it might be going out of the window as people are retiring and then other people are being promoted and creating higher standards for verification. Especially if they're thinking back like, wow, I really got away with this thing on my resume. I'm not gonna let anybody else get past that gate this time. So just thinking of it that way.
You don't have anybody in particular in mind as you say that. Brooke.
So many of the people in this room didn't start out knowing that they were going to be in this field or doing this type of work. And I tend to see that as the people that do know early, that's a privilege and extremely fortunate. However, is there anything else that you could see 10, 20, 30 years down the line that you may want to do completely different from what you're currently doing and studying? And if so, what would be your approach to making a life change?
She's asked a really easy question, guys.
Are you asking me specifically if I'm going to stay inside of civil engineering for the rest of my life? So that's a funny question. So I'm actually trying to go into the military as an officer after I graduate. So I'm going to be in probably for 4 to 5 years, or if I be a lifer for 20, that's up to me. But so my goal is to do that, and then I'm going to get my master's after that, and then I'm still going to stay inside of civil engineering. And then after I get my master's, and I'll have my EIT by then probably. And at that point, I'm going to test for my PE license. And once you get your PE, like you'll get jobs like that. Like they usually will find out that you get a PE, and you get 20 jobs like immediately. It happened to a friend of mine. He just got his PE. He put it on his LinkedIn. He had 20 jobs waiting for him. So. That's my current goal, but if not, I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. I'm still pretty young. So with that being said, if I do change a career, I will definitely look into more certificates that are more related to a specific field I want to get into. But for now, with what I have going for me, I don't need a digital certificate as much.
We feel...
No, of course you can. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
No, and I agree. I think that's it's another interesting thing that processes like what we're talking about and being able to express them in different ways, might also be able to help other students kind of figure out how you got the fortitude and plan together, so that if they don't have an idea of where to go, they see a path that's a possibility for them. Ezzy, you can totally ask a question. Right. Until we get pulled off the stage, you can have the mic.
Right. So thanks for the question, Brooke. I am too old to change careers now. No plan on doing, so I'm not planning on doing that.
I promise you that's not true.
I'm 30, married with kids. No, I know it. But I do have a question. So you guys are asking us a lot of questions of how accreditation would kind of change our career paths or our student life. But I'm asking, how does it change higher ed institutions? Like there's places like Amazon, right, that have badges. You take a test and you have a badge. Right now, ASU provides a degree at the end of your X amount of years, however long it takes. Is there any thought that you would leverage this to kind of provide you talked about awards. I can list an award, right? But that I got in a class or whatever. But is there anything that you guys are planning on changing fundamentally in higher ed to kind of leverage this?
I'm looking around to see if I could pick on Roger Kohler, who is hiding. Chandi, you don't have Roger over there, do you? We do. And this afternoon, I think Roger will be back and he could share with you some of the things that the Learning Enterprise is doing. And I think we're all looking at our own programs within the university and trying to figure out how do we actually adapt. And to some of the challenges that you offered earlier, like what is it that we can do to actually experiment with you, not on you, with you. Did you want to say something?
No, I just want to say, I think it's hard. It's hard to kind of see the benefits when you're kind of used to the status quo, but if you start changing the way higher ed institution does these types of things, then maybe you can start seeing more benefits like, oh, not only do I get to list my degree, I get to list these badges that I've earned across my student career.
I think we'll also have a few folks that are registered from the Pocket team that would love to ideate with you on that too. Do you have any closing thoughts for us or audience? And if you've got anything, but kind of open it up just a little bit before we end.
No, I would just like to say that I have turned into a believer in the last 5 months. So what I mean by that is that we've all accomplished a lot of things in life. It's just in silos. We've never imagined them together. And then to be able to imagine that and then have different use cases for it where you can apply, that's something amazing. And of course, when we talk about disruptive technologies, it's a little difficult as even students to view what it can possibly do, but that's how disruptive technologies work. So hopefully that in the future, you all would become believers like me, and we can take this discussion off the stage as well.
I can't imagine a better way to end this than that sentiment, which is both a challenge and a lovely articulated. Thank you. If I may ask everybody to thank my incredible both student and co-moderator. And thanks so much for being able to spend the time with us. Contrarian, I love it.